Major League Baseball came to Arizona in 1947 when the then Cleveland Indians started playing some spring training games in Tucson and convinced the then New York Giants to play some games in Phoenix. The nickname, the Lumberjacks, isn't just the moniker of Northern Arizona University's sports teams. It's a tradition that reflects the roots of forestry practices in the North Woods. After going unbeaten in conference play and winning the WAC, the Lopes are going dancing for the first time in program history. Now the Diamondbacks players have voiced their opinions about the Torpedo Bats. Jake McCarthy saying earlier this week that at first glance it seemed pretty funny, but now he thinks that they are pretty cool. A federal court held a final hearing today in a landmark case that would fundamentally change the landscape of college athletics. With the growing popularity of Torpedo Bats, there's a chance you might see them here at Chase Field for Arizona Diamondbacks games. In fact, the Diamondbacks are facing some right now in New York as they take on the Yankees. Our own Grace Johnson caught up with another local prodigy who just happens to be a friendly four-legged athlete who competed in this year's Puppy Bowl.
13 seed Grand Canyon.
For GCU women's basketball, it's time for their one shining moment.
It's surreal, because you kind of reflect on the body of work that you've done up until this point. It's a lot of hard work and unseen hours and dedication.
After going unbeaten in conference play and winning the WAC, the Lopes are going dancing for the first time in program history. Their first stop, Waco, Texas, to take on the Baylor Bears. Uncharted waters for Molly Miller and crew, but they're ready for the challenge as they head east.
They do a really good job at offensive execution. They've got the defensive complement to go with it. So my assistant already sent me a brief scouting report. So if you can imagine that, we're going to get to work and put together a good game plan.
GCU struggled early against UT Arlington in the final, but it emerged victorious 65-62 and are the 13th seed in the Spokane 1 region. The players then watched the men's team beat Utah Valley in its championship game.
We literally got back at 5 a.m., so we're kind of running off sleep right now. But yeah, we're excited, a lot of emotions, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but we're on the upside right now.
And this veteran Lopes team will look to keep that upside as they start the dance.
No matter how it goes for us individually, I think just being able to be there as seniors and being there to uplift each other, that keeps us motivated and persevering, able to persevere to the game.
In Phoenix, Mihir Sinhasan, Cronkite News. The sights and sounds of spring training, the players, the lawns, the opportunities, and a chance to dive into the past.
Most people know at the national level, they'll know a little bit about Jackie Robinson, right? They'll know a little bit about the Negro League, Satchel Paige and, Josh Gibson, people like that. But they won't know about the history here in Arizona.
That history started in the 1890s with teams like the Buffalo Soldiers, also known as the 25th Infantry, along with the Tempe Crimson.
Because Arizona became a state in 1914, right around that time or even just a little bit before that, it was fairly integrated society.
Major League Baseball came to Arizona in 1947 when the then Cleveland Indians started playing some spring training games in Tucson and convinced the then New York Giants to play some games in Phoenix, overall giving more opportunities to African-American baseball players, knowing the racial makeup of State 48 at the time.
Those two owners were catalysts in integration. They were aggressively signing black players. They wanted this to happen.
It was a white over black or white over non-white sort of situation, but the race relations here were not as violent as they were in the South, and it was a bit more fluid.
But hotels were still segregated, so African-American players stayed in small houses nearby. In Phoenix, that meant being close to the Elks Lodge, St. Monica's Church, and the former George Washington Carver High School, which now holds the history of African-Americans in Arizona.
There was a lot of allies. Thankfully, they met some allies in Arizona that kind of helped this process along.
Historical preservation of these buildings are common but not complete in these neighborhoods. This was the house where Willie Mays stayed in 1952, and this is what it looks like now. Another commercial building. An example of how the past may not always be preserved.
Just because you maybe stayed somewhere, seasonally, or visited somewhere, that's typically doesn't meet the threshold for historic significance.
As Major League Baseball players celebrate Jackie Robinson Day, there is still room for improvement.
Literally, the field labor are the people of color. And some folks might say, how are you referring to field labor? I mean, these are multimillionaires. I understand that. I'm just talking about the racial dynamic mirrors what we saw 100 years ago.
But the legacy of the players here in Arizona will be remembered.
By their presence, Larry Doby, Ernie Banks, Monty Irvin, Willie Mays, the first wave of black players, all former Negro Leagues players, all Hall of Famers. Those guys' presence in Arizona integrated not just baseball in Arizona, but certain aspects of society.
In Phoenix, Mihir Sinhasan, Cronkite News.